Okay. Okay, can you hear me well? Okay, thank you so much for coming. Even if you come in for the actual 30 points, bonus points, I do all the work, you get 30 points. It doesn't make any sense at all. Before I start the talk, let me remind you today is April the 15th. I hope you have completed your income tax returns. If you have, I guess you are ready for a relaxing evening. Okay, so I remember 8 years ago, you made me give a talk for my job interview. Remember? Same room. So 8 years ago, I'm here giving another talk. So for some of you who don't know me well, I'm from Taiwan. And then, as you can see, you can now find, it's so hard for you to see Taiwan on this map. It's a small tropical island. How small, this is so loud. It's hurting my ears. Okay, how small this island is, it's about 3/4 of Coconino County. Yes, where we are, the Coconino County, only 3/4 of the size of Coconino County is my home country. Okay, so the southern part of Taiwan is tropical, so we do have excellent tropical fruits. When you slice a mango and you hold like this, you will have the juice sift through your fingers. So that's where I came from. Just think about that small tiny island. It has a population of 23 million people. Can you imagine that? So that's why, so in forests there, they are owned by the government. The harvesting is not, it's not the management objective at all. So if you want to guess, what would be the primary management objective for a small area with a high population density? Any guess? No? Just like when a forest near a big city, what would be the primary objective for managing the forest? You start with an R. Okay? Huh? Recreation. Excellent. So the major focus, for the managing the forest there is for recreation purpose. Okay, and then I went to Texas. As we all know, everything is big in Texas. It's not just big. The ownership, the first timberland ownership is different. Over there, about 92-93% of timberland is owned by private forest landowners. Only about 5% of the land is owned by a forest service. Because of the ownership, the management objectives are different, meaning that their focus may be focusing on profit. Okay, to earn some money to retire, to earn some money to send their kids to college. And also, when that large area is in the private ownership, the conflict between property rights and the public interest. For example, if you want to preserve an endangered species, you are asking forest landowners not to cut, not to harvest. You should provide them with sufficient financial incentives to delay or not to do any harvesting at all. And then in 2007, I came here in Arizona. The ownership is different again. Now here, about 27% of timberland is owned by private landowners, including reservations. So about 71-72% of timberland is owned by Forest Service. So the management goals, management objectives are different again. So as you can see, as I am jumping around the regions, the countries, the management goals, objectives change. Okay, so forest management goal can be stated in general form. Okay, so the first set of the goals, increase income, increase carbon storage, and then to recover an endangered species, to recover endangered species or to enhance game species habitat. Okay, so another set of goals, to reduce fire hazard risk. that is especially true in this region. Also, the following one, to provide a diversity of recreational opportunity. That's also true in this region. And so management goals can be as general, as broad as what I have at the bottom two here, to provide the greatest good for the greatest number in the long term, to enhance the forest health and ecological integrity. The problem is when you have very broad management goals, objectives, it's hard for you to evaluate your success. It's hard for you to know, are we there yet? Have we been successful? It's like designing a course. You have learning outcomes without a suitable assessment to see if students are successful. Okay, and then there are ways, there are goals which can be presented in a more specific ways. So as you can see here on this page of slide, I have a lot of numbers, percentage, monetary value. So with this, it becomes easier to evaluate, if the goals have been achieved. So goals come with criteria. So those are two examples of the criteria related to the goal. Okay, so for some goals, it's difficult to state a criterion. I'm going to give you one example. Okay, so ultimately, everybody in this room, in your life, you want to be happy, right? What's your happiness index? I guess it's kind of personal. It depends on individual, and then it can be measured by good health. It can be measured by your income, so it can be measured by how many good nights sleep you have in a month. And when I say numbers of highs, I mean like excitement. I didn't mean the other high, okay? So numbers of highs or low when you are depressed, all that. Okay, so another example is to maintain an aesthetic environment, the scenic beauty. Okay, so that is also subjective. We always say the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it's a personal judgment. But I'm going to tell you something very spooky. Okay, very, very spooky. They are scientists. They have come up with equations to predict how you will see, how you will view the beauty of forest. So the first equation there for Ponderosa Pine, SBE, Scenic Beauty Index. Okay, it has a lot of variables which are not very common. So I'm going to skip to the second and the third one. Okay, so as you can see, with some common state information, such as DBH, such as trees per acre, such as stand age. With all those ingredients, all the variables, they can plot the numbers into the formula. They can predict, okay, in general, the public will how the public will view the beauty of the forest. So that even though that's subjective terms, researchers have found a way to kind of get into your mind to predict what you will see. Okay, so I want to talk about optimization, which is a very useful technique to use to help decision makers. It will allow decision makers to do the following three things. First, it will specify how much scarce resource an alternative will use, and then the impact of each alternative on the achievement of the goal. Second, it will rank alternatives for you based on a set of your preferences and values. And then, finally, it will select alternatives that will give you the greatest increase in net value. It can be in monetary terms, it can be in non-monetary terms, and to maximize the attainment of the goal. So that is optimization techniques can be used in forest management. Okay, so I have used optimization to investigate the topics listed here. Timber revenue, carbon credit, recreation revenues, also hunting leases. With all the information there, it can provide it can provide economic trade-offs when you are doing one thing, when you are choosing A over B. Okay, so here, I'm going to show you two figures to help you visualize what's going on when we talk about optimization. So the first figure here, the x-axis stage. So for even age stand, think about this as staying age. And then y-axis states. It can be reserve growing stocks in terms of basal area, in terms of volume, in terms of stand density. And as you can see in stage number 2, we have 3 options here. Now, based on the option you choose in stage number 2, it will affect the available option for you in stage number 3 and 4. So the outcome in stage number 5, number 14, the decision node number 14 is the product of the choices you make in different stage throughout the project life. So here is one example for you. So let's use Southern Pine, even age stand as example. So if in stage 1, stage 0, stage 1 there, let's assume that we are going to do site preparation and planting in year 0. Okay, and then stage number 2, H2. No, not H2. Stage number 2, H18. You have a couple options here. You have the option of doing nothing, no thinning, or you have the option of heavy thinning. So let me do this. So the heavy thinning will have residual basal area of 80, and then light thinning. So number 2 here means that you will have a higher residual basal area of 100. So you go through each stage, and then you make the decision. You make the decision which will also affect the following options. So in stage number 3, you have to decide again: should we do any thinning or not? And then stage the number 10, you have to decide at the age 30, should we have the final harvest? Should we wait longer? So it's like looking at forest as a factory. Okay, I know it doesn't sound romantic, but in some way, forests, the standing trees, are serving as a factory. It's like bank on the stump. Okay, bank on the stump, meaning that should we harvest and need to receive some money today from the bank, or should we keep the trees on the side in the stand a few years longer, and then to have the harvest later to receive the revenues later? Okay, so dynamic programming. So with all the complexity related to the two figures I showed you earlier, commonly we use dynamic programming to maximize biological potential and economic returns. Because earlier, we only talk about biological data related to each stage, the decision we had to make in each stage. So think about this. If we are going to include economic numbers such as inflation, such as increase in labor, such as increase in soil log pulpwood, it doesn't make the whole thing very, very, very complicated. So by using dynamic programming, it can help us to determine the optimal combinations of decision. So after we find the optimal combination of decision, we can achieve our goal. Either we are trying to maximize something or minimize something. Okay, so dynamic programming. However, usually dynamic programming can only deal with one management goal. Okay, so here we talk about ecosystem services quite often. We are not satisfied with one ecosystem services. We want to have more, 2 or more. In that case, I will tell you which technique we will use. So before I talk about that, here are some definitions of ecosystem services from different textbooks. I'm sure you are very familiar with the definitions here. the whole part about putting a value on ecosystem services is when they are around, it's hard to measure, to quantify. It's when they are not around, when they are not available, it's easy to measure, meaning that we measure the damage. For example, we know forests can prevent soil erosion, but after a fire, forests are gone. The soil erosion will occur. So immediately you can measure the damage done on the property and all the things associated with the damages. So sometimes another way to look at the value of ecosystem services is to look at avoid damages. Okay, so goal programming. As I mentioned earlier, this is commonly used when a decision maker has two or more well-defined goals. And the decision maker is not comfortable just choosing one out of those two or more goals. And it's an extension of linear programming. It's the most widely used techniques for general multi-objective programming for multiple use management objectives. It's commonly used in natural resource management to solve the problems. So with that, now I'm going to talk about my doctoral student Ben's project. This is one of his dissertation chapter. I'm very grateful that he made all the comprehensive GIS maps for me for my talk today. Okay, so his study area is about 57,000 acres. It's within the Fly area. It's in the Flagstaff Ranger District of Coconino National Forest. So that is his study area. Okay, so within this study area, we have 944 timber stands. Okay, so in terms of fire hazard risk, so you can see the majority of the area is red. Red is bad in this case. The number 5, it means that the fire risk level is the highest. So as you can see currently, in 2015, the majority of landscape within his study area is classified as high fire risk. Okay, so in this study, we use 5 levels of risk levels. And then so we group, it's not bright enough, okay, here. Okay, so we group medium high, and high together as out of condition class. And then we group very low and low together as in condition. Okay, the name is kind of funny. So when I say in condition, which means it's good. When I say out of condition, which means bad. Okay, so the research questions. Okay, what would be the important ecosystems, ecosystem services in this region? And then what, as a land manager, as a decision maker, what can we do? What can we do to maximize those ecosystems? What would be the optimal solution to help us to achieve the goal? Okay, so for the methodology, first, Ben did a very thorough literature review, and then later we selected 6 ecosystem services. Now later I will show you the six ecosystem services that we chose. And then he used the FVS to stimulate stand growth, and then again use the FVS output to estimate ecosystem services depending on treatment scenarios. Okay, so the 6 ecosystem services we chose. The first 2 regarding the habitat. Habitat for Mexican spotted owl and then northern goshawk. And then we use HSI. All the semester B students learn this term in semester B, right? We use HSI score to determine if the sites, if the stands are suitable for those two species. And then the third one is carbon storage. The fourth one is scenic beauty index, like what I told you earlier. Somebody tried to get into your mind to see how you see things. Okay, and then the number 5, the merchantable portion of the timber. And then number 6 is biomass, which is not merchantable portion of the timber. We are hoping that in the future, in the very near future, we can have a biomass plant in this region which can utilize the non-merchantable portion of the wood to generate some electricity or bioenergy. Okay, so these are the other data we calculated. And then Ben made a very interesting point. He was saying that the fire has a ranking. Of course, it's not ecosystem services. It's like forced liability. So it's like the liability, what we can do to minimize the risk associated with the fires. Okay, so it's a very complex, simulation. For the thinning intensity, there are 3 options. Thin to residual BA, 40, 80, and 120. So 3 options. And then when the thinning occurs, it will in one of the following 4 time periods, 2015, 2030, 2045, and 2060. They are in the 15-year intervals. Okay, so we have 13 possible scenarios. Why 13? Remember, we had 3 thinning intensities, and then 4 time periods. So 3 multiplied by 4, we have 12. And then we plus number 13, do nothing scenario. So that's why we have a total of 13 possible scenarios. Okay, so again, remember we had 944 stands, 13 scenarios, including 12 treatment scenarios plus 1 no action scenario. So the number of possibility of management regime is that crazy number there. Okay, let me point out that crazy number there for you. Oh, you see the red? No? Okay, let me try this one. Okay, this one here is 13 to the power of 944. So 13 to the 944th power. So I entered this number to Excel last night. I couldn't even get a number. So you can see how humongous this number is. Okay, so I don't know if you are confused yet. If you are, let me unconfuse you. So here is what I need you to do. Okay, just imagine that you have a box of puzzles. In this case, your box has 944 pieces of puzzle because we have 944 stands. And then each stand has the designated location. Okay, so and then also each piece of puzzle has 13 options for the color. So 13 colors available for you to choose from. So as a decision maker, your job is to first think about the image you try to create. So what is your management objective, your management goal? So after you have a clear picture of what image you are going to create, then it's your responsibility to find the best color for each of your puzzle in order to create the best image possible. Does this make sense to you? Does this make sense to you? Good. So it means that the optimal solution is we find the treatment schedule for each single of the stand in order to create the image, in order to achieve our management goal. Okay, so this flowchart presents the methodology we use to come up with the data which will be presented here today. Okay, so the two conflicting goals which we chose today to present, the first one is to minimize fire risk. The second one is maximize carbon. Why do I say they are conflicting goals? Okay, as we know, as we have more and more trees on the site, we accumulate more and more carbon on the site. So that is good in terms of carbon storage. But think about this, when we have a lot of biomass, when we have a lot of trees on the site, in the same time, we also increase fire hazard. So in order to reduce fire hazard, to reduce fire hazard risk, we have to go into the stand to do the thinning to remove some of the trees. By doing that, we are going to reduce carbon storage on the site. So that's why those are two conflicting goals. But how can we find a way to maximize both of the goals? Okay, so the first set of data you are going to see is fire hazard risk rating. We are going to compare no action scenarios and then optimal solution scenario. In 2015 and 2060, so we choose the two ends within our project time frame 2015 and 2060. Okay, so on the left-hand side is no action. The no action scenario, the fire risk, fire hazard risk in 2015. And on the right-hand side is the optimal solution in 2015. And as you can see the table up here, okay, so 56% right here, 56% of the landscape is considered as out of condition class, meaning that high fire risk. And then with the optimal solution, we only have 1%. We only have 1% of landscape is in that category, in that out of condition category. And it means that if we can treat 31,219 acres, it will help us to reduce the percentage of landscape in the out of condition class from 56% to 1%. So this is for 2015. Okay, so how about 2060? Again, on the left-hand side is no action scenario. In 2060, if we don't do any treatment at all, the percentage of out of condition class will increase to 60%. And then if we look at the optimal solution scenario, the out of condition class will be 0%. So which means that if we treat 8,635 acres, we can achieve that goal. Okay, so fire hazard risk difference. How do we know? We want to know how much does the optimal solution change fire or hazard risk. So it's a difference. So it's a difference between fire risk of optimal solution minus the fire risk of no action. So this triangular means the change, the difference. Okay, so if we look at the left-hand side, in 2015, the difference is 31,184 acres, which means that we can convert what? We can convert acres which are in the out of condition to in condition class, meaning that to convert those acres, 31,000 acres from high risk, from high fire risk to low fire risk. That's the conversion. And so that's in 2015. And then let's look at 2060. Okay, so the conversion the acres improved is 34,239, which means about 34,000 acres are converted from the high fire risk to low fire risk with the optimal solution model. Okay, let's have a mental break, 5 seconds. Okay, that was good, right? Okay, let's come back. Okay, let's come back and look at carbon storage. We are going to do the same comparison between no action and optimal solution scenario in 2015 and 2060. Okay, so on the left-hand side, no action scenario, the carbon on average, right here, is about 41 tons per acre for the carbon under the no action scenario. But if we look at optimal solution scenario, the number will drop to 30 tons per acre. It makes perfect sense because with the optimal solution, we had to conduct treatments to reduce fire risk. By removing the trees from our stands, we are removing carbon as well. So this is 2015. Okay, so how about 2060? Okay, let's see. On a per acre basis, 62 tons of carbon per ton. That's under no action scenario. And then if we conduct treatments under the optimal scenario solution, it will drop to 44 tons per acre. So this is 2060. Okay, so with all the information above, we are going to ask the same question again. Okay, carbon storage difference. How much does the optimal solution change carbon storage? We are going to do the same calculation again, the difference in carbon storage. Okay, so as we can see here, the difference is about 10 tons per acre in 2015. And the number will increase to 18 tons per acre in 2060. So this is the carbon storage difference. So with that, so let's look at this table. This table summarizes some biological and economic numbers here. So in general, basal area will stay between 93 to 123 within the project time frame. And if you look at acres treated, there will be about 42,077 acres, which should be treated under the optimal solution or scenario. In terms of percentage, 73% of the landscape should be treated. If you look at economics numbers here, they are all red. It's all red. This area is a forest economist's nightmare. Really, it's like you don't have any positive thing to show because here $5 per CCF. Okay, CCF is 100 cubic feet. So the price is so low. And the treatment cost is $1,000 per acre. So that is so high. So with 4% interest rate, we came up with all the negative numbers here. So which means in translation, if we are going to treat 42,077 acres, it will cost us about $30.6 million to do so. So that's it's very depressing to see this. Okay, so trade-off analysis. Okay, so let's see. Earlier I told you the goals, they are conflicting. Those are two conflicting goals. So here, so for carbon loss per acre of fire hazard reduction, which means that when we go to a stand, for each acre of the stand, we conduct treatments on to convert from high fire risk class to low fire risk class, we will have to give up about 18.67 tons of carbon in 2015. Okay, so on the same token, in 2060, the trade-off will increase to 31 tons of carbon per acre, which means that for each acre of the stand you treat, in order to reduce fire hazard risk, you are giving up 31 tons of carbon on a per acre basis. Okay, so for the net present value, for the it's not even revenues. It's the cost here. It will be about $903 per acre in 2015, and then about $168 in 2060. Please be aware that in this analysis, we kept the 1,000 treatment costs constant throughout the whole project timeframe from 2015 to 2060. If we include, for example, labor costs, annual labor costs in the analysis, this number would definitely go up. Okay, another mental break. Okay, well, that was a lot of information, right? Okay, so let's come back here. I have two master students. Howard is here today. Howard. And then I want to thank Dr. Bob Mathiasen, who have given us guidance and materials on this subject, because he's an expert on this subject. And then so jaw mistletoe infection, the three photos provided by Howard. So if you are from this area, you are from this region, the image you are seeing now should not be foreign to you, because I see those commonly in the forest here. Okay, so ponderosa pine, jaw mistletoe. Okay, here is some basic information about ponderosa pine, jaw mistletoe. So I want to bring your attention. This is the most economically damaged jaw mistletoes in this region. The incidence is especially high in the southern New Mexico and then some portion of central Arizona. Okay, so for Howard's master research paper, he will focus on management philosophies on tribal and federal land, and then also focus on management strategy associated with climate change, and then economic damage of jaw mistletoe infection and management recommendations. And then he's hoping to have this done by the December of this year. Okay, so another master student I have is working on this project. I am co-advising Roy with Dr. Eric Nielsen, and he is hoping to graduate in December as well. Okay, so but before I go into his project, probably most of us still remember the short fire we had in 2010. It was not a big fire. It burned about 15,000 acres. But the damage associated with this fire was tremendous. Okay, so the fire in June 2010. Okay, so in November 2012, I don't know if you still remember that there was an election thing. So when we go vote, we have an option. We have an option of saying yes or no on a 10 million municipal bond. Okay, so the funding will be used to treat two watersheds in Flagstaff. Apparently, most of us say yes. About 74% of us approve the municipal bond, and then so the funding will go to treat the Rio de Flag and Lake Mary watersheds to help reduce fire risk. Now, it should be noted the treatment areas are outside the Fort Fry project area. Okay, the unique part of this project is a partnership between the city, the state, and then national forest. So between three types of stakeholders, they work together to conduct the treatments in those watersheds. Okay, so this is a map indicating the treatment area on the top. The yellow part is Rio de Flag, watershed treatment areas. And then the orange part is Lake Mary treatment area. Okay, so this is a flow chart indicating the responsibility. So for Forest Service, their responsibility is to perform NEPA analysis. And then for the city of Flagstaff, their responsibility is to provide funding, also to conduct a contract. But they both have the responsibility to perform community outreach, public outreach. Oh God. Okay, so FWPP, as I mentioned earlier, it's a partnership between the city, state, and the national forest. And then currently, it's approaching final EIS. Okay, so for Roy's project, his project will focus on to examine, to investigate the efficiency, the efficiency and effectiveness and accountability associated with this project. We hope that by learning from this project, it can be used as a model for other communities who are facing with similar environmental issues. Okay, so for the methodology, it will include internal document review, and then key participant interviews. Roy did intensive phone interviews last year, so that part was completed. And then for the stakeholder survey, that part was also completed last month. And so Roy is in the process of analyzing his data. Okay, so the last part of this presentation, if everything goes smoothly as planned, this summer I will be working with faculty with University of Montana and research scientists with the Rocky Mountain Research Station to work on a proposal to be submitted to Department of Energy. For the NAU portion, my responsibility will be on economics and logistics of biomass production. Okay, so for this part, economics of biomass production, first I will quantify all the pollutants listed here, the pollutants emitted from a coal-fired power plant or a gas-fired power plant, on-site pile burning, and biomass energy plants. Okay, after I calculate and quantify all the emissions, I will calculate the marginal and total damage cost associated with different types of fuel sources. In Arizona, coal, as probably most of you know, coal and natural gas are the primary energy sources. And also by determine the damage associated with the energy source, it will give me the environmental and health benefits of utilizing biomass to generate electricity. I'm hoping that by conducting this type of research, it will help me to present the true economic value of forest resources. And also it will reduce the dependency on coal and natural gas, and then increase the income opportunity to the local communities. So that is the goal. Okay, so that's the first part, something that interests me very much. The second part is feedstocks, logistics. And I'm hoping that if funded, I will have the funding to purchase RANSOFT software. I remember when I just came here, 7 years ago, I looked into how much it would cost to buy a software like that. The quote they gave me was $6,000 for educational version, meaning that very basic data. I'm hoping that if this project is funded, I will have the access to the complete set of software. And then with that software, you will enable lane manager to fully identify the management problem and also provide solution using simulation and optimization. I really love that word. Optimization approach is to make geographic data available, meaning that to link to GIS data and then allocate the treated, allocate the area treated and then products produced to specific units. So it will give us a lot of details by using this software. Okay, so with that, I have one question for you. Any questions? So any questions? Did I go too fast? Okay.
I have a question. It's about the first study, the economic valuation and the prime stance. And it occurred to me that an important ecosystem service pertains to water.
Mm-hmm.
Water that flows from forests.
Mm-hmm.
So the quantity of water and the quality of the water. And California is experiencing now what is predicted to occur here.
Mm-hmm.
Snowpacks decline. The price of water, the value will increase substantially. So have you considered including water in the analysis?
No, we did. We did consider to include water in the analysis. And then think about this, for the multiple use, water is one of the multiple use of forestry. And then it became so infeasible, not feasible to include that in the analysis without solid data. So that's why we didn't have enough data to include that in our analysis. We definitely realize water is a very important resource in this region.
Well, I'm wondering, you have those enormous deficits in funding required to implement the treatments.
Mm-hmm.
That's in parentheses.
Yeah.
How might they change if you could include water? You would assume that the value of water could increase 5 times in 50 years.
I think the difficult part is the biological part, it's not the economic part. So how does thinning will increase water yield? How does thinning will increase water quality? That part is the hard part to quantify. Otherwise, for the value of water, it's relatively easier to put a price on.
Yeah, well, we can talk more about that.
Sure.
A few estimates about the effects.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so any other questions? Hi, Matt.
I'm just curious, do you think there's really a conflict between management of stance for carbon storage and fire risk management? The reason I ask is because a lot of carbon now probably means that stand is going to burn
Yes.
fairly soon.
Yes.
That's really zero carbon.
Yes.
Are there other ways to consider carbon that takes that into account? It seems to me that the same management strategy could produce a sustainable level of carbon
Mm-hmm.
to withstand fire
Mm-hmm.
and reduce fire risk at the same time.
That's a good point for a lot of first project protocols. Even if you conduct thinning to very low BA, they will not consider it's going to be fire risk free for the rest of the project life. They will give you some credit. Okay, so instead of here, fire risk here, and by doing thinning, by doing treatment, you can reduce your fire risk to here, and then they will give you the difference in terms of carbon credits. So I hear you, like without any treatments, the fire will be burned. The fire will burn, and then we will lose all the timber stands, all the trees within a couple of weeks. So, but because it hasn't happened yet, so it's hard to make the argument that it will happen. So in that case, you cannot claim carbon credit that way. But you can claim carbon credit by performing treatments. And for some forest product, project protocol, the intensity of the treatment will affect how many credits, carbon credit you can claim. So any other question? Yeah, Carol.
So you mentioned that you don't have good data for water to include in modeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the past we've tried to model the development of understory. I don't know how easy that is to do, to model shrub development. But what kinds of things would you like to be able to model better that you feel the data are not good enough yet?
You mean for the water or for the understory?
Or anything. I mean, those are two examples of things that I think are probably somewhat data limited.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you'd really like to see more information on to be able to include in modeling?
Oh, that's a good question. For the understory, for the scenic beauty index, one of the decision variables was understory vegetation, right? So that was included in our analysis. And also in terms of future data that will be needed to improve the analysis here, our next chapter will be to incorporate the climate change, the impacts of climate change on the ecosystem services. So that'll be interesting to see. But let me think. Do you have any other? What other ecosystem services? Probably not in his dissertation. Otherwise, he will never graduate.
Well, kind of getting to Matt's point, one of the things we could have done with the fire hazard risk is there's a certain programming called stochastic where you can integrate sort of probability distributions of fire hazard or stands burning. So that might have been another way to get at that same type of question. If it hits a certain probability, then that the stand's going to burn, then we'll just consider that it's going to burn. And so maybe the goal then becomes minimize probability of catastrophic wildfire. So I don't know.
And then so for Carol's question, I really don't have the answer for you now. Of course, it would be nice to include more and more ecosystem services, in the analysis. But it's like how accurate the data will be, especially are the data sensitive to where the location of the stands are. That's another question. So any other questions? Okay, so thank you so much for coming.